Hey everybody, we're a little late getting going today. Had some faux pas. Uh, Reason being is I was going to make this the Ringmaster 576 day, which I did bring over here, but had to drive back and pick up the Tucker because I went ahead and put clear on it today. 2 coats of clear. I bought a SATA clone gun, that Black Widow. Gave it a try. Looks like I got a spot here. Anyway, I got enough clear on it now that I can go ahead and ink the thing up. And well, first I'm going to sand it out and then ink it. And then bring it back next weekend. And let's see how much it weighs.
Yep.
70 ounces.
Let me take that block and cut that in half real quick. And
Okay. Yeah, there we go. We got somebody watching us now. Welcome. So, like I say, sorry that 2 guys. Sorry that we're so late. You must have been waiting on me. Anyway, as I first stated, I got a couple coats of clear on the Tucker today. It's humid, but we heated up the garage and put retarder in the clear. I used the crystal clear today, which is not really crystal clear. It came from Wix. It's the non-tautening Butyric clear. John's cutting a couple foam blocks. We can get a weight on it. Thanks for the thumbs up. As always, like, subscribe, share. Super chats help. Put it on there. Get it to weight. Hopefully it's 41 ounces. Oh, it feels heavy though.
are we touching anywhere? Not touching over here.
41 ounces. What do you got?
1,175.
Okay, weigh it up or figure it out.
$41.475.
Yeah, that'd be 42 and a half. Finished.
44 ounces.
No. I told you 42. Plus I'll sand 3 ounces of that off.
What's our saying? 70 ounces.
Yeah, we'll sand some of that off, but you're not going to sand much off from where you are here, so I'm at 41 and a half ounces. It's fresh. It'll probably gas off maybe a 1/4 ounce, so it'll be 41 and a quarter. Plus put the pilot in, that'll be 41 and a half ounces back again. And then I'll sand it out, and that'll be 41 and a quarter. And then I'll add 2 more coats of dope. It'll be 42 and a half. That's just the way it is. But it's starting to take shape. The plan is to take it back to the closet, sand it out. I won't be doing anything. I've got to do laundry. Been 3 weeks now.
No ifs, ands, or buts there.
Yeah, this is my last pair of jeans. So I'll go over and fix all the dings and ink it, and then we'll come back over next weekend and shoot a couple coats of clear on it. Then I'll sand and buff it out. John, on his Nobler, has put his blocker coats on. We got 7 watchers. Go ahead and tell us about your Nobler, John.
Well, basically what we got here is we primered it, and we tried to sand 90% of the primer off. You don't get 90% of it off, but let me tell you something about primer. You put on 2 ounces of primer, and you're only going to sand maybe a 1/4 ounce of it off there, even as thin as you may think you got it.
Hold on a second. Can everybody hear John okay? Give me a, in the chat, type yes or no.
Hello?
Hello, give me somebody, can you guys hear us? I have no way to type in chat. Yeah, how about John? Can you hear John?
Can you hear me okay?
Okay, Garrett, go ahead, John.
All right, so we did the primer on it, sanded the primer out, and it was all modded looking, and then I went over it a second time and I sanded all the heavier spots that, where I'd basically burnt the primer and sanded through to the covering, and I went back over it again, spot sanding it and taking all the heavier gray spots and sanding them off until you could basically read the newspaper through them. And that left me with some rough spots where I got down to the paper and that kind of stuff. And it brought out a few little dings that I could start seeing at that point in time. So I touched up a little putty on those and got those spots. And then I put on a blocker coat, which I'm starting to make the airplane all one color. I typically do my airplanes in white because I like brighter colors, so I try to make my planes as white as I can, or I put a completely white base coat on it. But this is a clear with a little bit of white added to it, and it's probably, I want to say, at least 60% thinner, maybe more like 70% thinner, and clear, and just enough white to tint the clear. And then I shot that on there, and that sort of sealed the little burn spots and all that stuff and started getting some color on it. Well, now all the little dents and dings and everything like that start popping out big time now. So we're at a point right now where the whole airplane will get a sanding, complete sanding, and we'll start filling all the little dents and dings that we can see now that there's some white on it. And then after that, it'll determine on what color I want to paint it. If it's a darker color, I probably won't do much of anything more to it. But if it's a lighter color, say white, then I'll have to paint, white, of course. But I won't sand all this color off of there. It's just tinted clear anyway, so it doesn't take much to really get through it. It's basically just it's pretty doggone smooth right now. It's almost looks like you don't need to do any sanding to it, but there are a few little rough spots here and there on it, and we're going to have to sand the little dents and dings that we fix in it with the primer, with the green glazing putty, and then I'll shoot a little bit of that tinted clear over top of the green glazing spots, and only over those spots, and after I do that, then basically it's going to be probably about 400 grit paper, probably get off the 320 stuff and go to 400 at that point, or 500, and because it's pretty smooth right now already. I don't know if I want to leave some bigger scratches in it. Sparky says 320 is okay, which is fine. He does his in 320. They come out fine. That everybody's got their own little game they play. But anyway, that's it. And I was really surprised, that it's come out as well as for as few as dents and dings and everything. And it's actually starting to get hard now, whereas, just tissue and prior to tissue is so, it gets dings and dents so easily in it. You just look at it cross-eyed and you got a fingernail mark or something in the doggone thing. So now it's starting to get hardened up a little bit, and you can actually handle it somewhat. But, it's looking pretty good. I mean, I guess you can see it in the camera. You can see it's still sort of muddy a little bit, which is just what you want. I don't want a lot of paint on there. Clear's the lightest thing that you can put on your airplane. So I didn't really want a lot of color on it right now. I just want enough to start showing the blemishes up, and that's sort of what we're doing right now. This is the final step before the real color coats go on it, and you don't want to add putty any more than you got to. So my next step after this sanding, I'll work on the cockpit, and that'll probably be all airbrushed in there. I don't know what color, whether I'm gonna make it white or I'm gonna make it another color, and I'll get the canopy on it, and then we'll go from there.
How much weight did it pick up?
I have no idea because I haven't really put it on the scale since I painted the clear on it, but it picked up another half an ounce, I'd imagine. Or an ounce, yeah. Which will sand a little bit of that off, but like I say, you can spray 2 ounces of primer on an airplane and it'll look beautiful, and you can read the newspaper through it, but I bet you've only sanded a quarter of it off or less. It's something about it, whatever sinks in that you don't get, the chemical bond, not the mechanical bond. You can't get the weight off of it that's a chemical bond, because it actually soaks through all the other layers. Unless you sand it all the way down and you don't see any gray on it, well, then sort of what's the point?
I believe that if we were to do a wing, let me get this on because they can't hear me. I believe if we were to cover a wing, this is something for you refinishers. If we were to cover a wing and completely strip the covering off, weigh the wing, get it finished out real nice, strip all the covering off so it was down to the bare wood so you couldn't see any covering, recover it, repaint it, it's still going to be an ounce heavier.
Yeah.
And there'll be no covering and no paint on it. It'll still be an ounce heavier.
Yeah. Yeah, your chemical bond goes all the way down into your substrate, into your wood and everything. So.
Yeah, I'm thinking about. I have a good airplane. I'm going to fly my XL again next year at the Nats because there's no way I'm going to get another Tucker done for open at the Nats. So it'll be my XL, and it's kind of for wear. It's been 3 years. It's 3 years old. It's got some pretty good gigs on it. And where I loaned it to Charles last year and pulled the sticker off, it's kind of screwed up. And then where I dropped the rock through the top of the wing, of course it had to go through the top of the wing. So I'm going to have to fix that. And where my friend poked a hole in the leading edge, that added an ounce. So I'd like to refinish the whole airplane, but I'm afraid that I would change the flying characteristics. So what I'm going to do is just doctor it up, make it look as good as possible. It's 58 ounces. It flies extremely well. I don't want to make it 59 ounces, and it doesn't sound like much for the difference between 58 and 59, but trust me, you can feel it. And it will change the flying characteristic because the balance point will change.
Well, for most people out there, if you're shooting for 15 points in appearance judging, that's 16 points, maybe 17 points, that's good enough. The upper echelon guys that are in the expert and master's class, they can be fighting for the extra point or two in appearance because they're so close on their scores that can make a difference. It can make or break you. But if you're still middle of the pack or lower pack expert even, a couple points probably isn't going to raise you enough to compensate for a poor performing airplane by weighing 75 or 80 ounces or something like that, just trying to get an extra point or two in appearance judging. You're better off having a better flying airplane and a lighter weight airplane than going for those last few points, putting Insta-Gloss on it and Insta-Shine, whatever you want to call it, polyurethane clear coat, the whole thing up, and you get a real shiny airplane. But most of the time, if you look past the shine, then you see all the other mistakes that were made way down below that shine. But it sure does look good sitting there on the ground, but it weighs 75 ounces. And
The wall banger.
you make that sharp turn out of the horizontal square eights or the triangles or the hourglass, and you do that last turn down there, and you got to turn 10 feet before the plane turns, then you realize just what the weight is doing for you.
Some guys like that. I don't aspire to that.
You turn 6 or 8 feet before the turn, and the plane mushes for 6 feet, and then finally turns, and then it makes that last corner look like you cut it off. Didn't go down as far as where you should have gone, just because you're compensating for the weight. Now, all these new airfoils are fine. Yeah, they'll carry the weight and they'll look pretty good, but you can still see that if you look close enough at it. You can still see that drop on a heavy airplane, even with the best pilots. You can see them, sinking in the turns. It's the nature of the beast. And me and Sparky were talking about this last week, and I don't know if we talked about it on air or not, but it used to be 8 to 10 ounces a square foot wing loading. And now, because we've got more horsepower, of course, with the horsepower comes more weight. The planes are flying better, but to really get the most out of all that horsepower, you still need to come in at the old weights where you got a wing loading at a max of 10 ounces a square foot, not 12 or 14 ounces a square foot or 16 ounces, which is what they're flying at right now. And you'll get much more performance, and you turn that puppy and it just goes bang and it turns and doesn't drop or anything like that. With the lower wing loading, you'll get that. So we've actually made things better with more horsepower, but in the same sense, everybody's slacking off on the weight of their airplanes and putting pretty paint jobs on them and stuff at the demise of the extra horsepower. So, we really should be looking back at those older days where we were shooting for 9 ounces a square foot. E10 was hard to do. Even on the small airplanes, 35, 40, 46 size airplanes of the past, 10 ounces was pretty hard to achieve even back then. And nowadays, with the lack of real good quality wood, and outside of that, the finish hasn't changed. The airfoil's changed a little bit because you got all that horsepower, so you put thick airfoil on it to sort of keep it steady in speed. And it does lift more weight, but they mush. I think that's been said plenty of times. If you watch a pattern master or something's got a 3 1/4, 3.5 inch thick wing, got tons of wing air. It'll lift a ton of weight, but that doesn't mean it's going to turn really good.
Let's take the Tucker Special, for instance. Now, my Tucker's going to come out 42 ounces. That sounds really good, But the original Tucker was 38.
Yeah, I think the Noblers were 38 too, or somewhere around in there. They weren't 40. They're
Well, they don't fly good at 50, I can tell you that. I don't think so.
personally, I'd like to see these airplanes that come out no more than 40
Right.
for either one of these airplanes. But as hard as we try, and let me tell you, these planes were hard to handle when we were building them. We were breaking parts on them as fast as we were building them and looking at them because everything's so fragile. Everything's, I mean, you're using the lightest weight wood we can get. We're building them with the thinnest wood we can build them with, hoping to get them into the finish stages where it hardens them up like they are right now. But they're so fragile up until you get them to that point that, you know, hanger rash and stuff is a constant battle. And every time you get hanger rash, then you got more putty you're putting in, you got more weight you're adding. And before you know it, it's there. And you got the mystery pounds, mystery ounces that come in there that we don't know where those come from yet. But there's always an ounce or two of those that come in. It doesn't matter how many times, I know we talked about this, you weigh all these parts and pieces separate and you bolt them all together and put them on that airplane, they're going to weigh different. You can weigh them separate all you want. And I think somebody asked a couple weeks ago about, Sparky, why do you keep putting your motor in and out and all these parts and pieces bolting that airplane back and forth together? Because we found that we can take these fixed weights and weigh them on a scale. And they weigh one thing and then bolt them all to that airplane, and before you know, it weighs different. Why? We don't know, but it does.
I still have to add the weight of the glue for the hinges.
You got tip weight in it yet?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, glue for the hinges. There's a couple little grams. Pilot's got to still go in there.
At 2 grams. Well, he's already
Some
factored in.
gauges or whatever you're going to do about that. Painting little circles.
Not much. There won't be much.
You know, but you're not going to lose. You're from anywhere from the time you put the silk span on onward, they typically do nothing but gain weight from that point. They don't ever get lighter. They just keep gaining.
Anybody that tells you it's going to gas off a couple of ounces is full of it.
Nah.
It may gas off a quarter ounce over a season.
Yeah, you leave it in the car, 90-degree weather for a month.
Maybe a quarter ounce. But if I'd have used death paint on this, it'd have been 60 ounces already.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that only adds an ounce.
And you ain't sanding that stuff off. I don't care what you do. You could spray it on there and start sanding immediately, and it's going to harden up. And you ain't going to sand nothing off of it.
It only gains an ounce.
Yeah, right.
I've heard that bull from so many guys. Oh, yeah, I put urethane. I only gained an ounce. Yeah, okay.
I'd have to be standing right there watching it. I'm sorry, guys, but I'd have to stand there and watch that to see it and believe
Yeah,
it.
I'm from the show me state. You have to show me.
Yeah.
Because I ain't buying it.
We're using the tried and true old-fashioned method of model airplane dope lacquer, basically. You might say plasticized lacquer. And basically all you're doing is you're building up a layer of plastic on everything. And
You guys see the cases of elbow grease on the shelf back there?
yeah.
And we haven't broke that out yet.
You might see that in the near future. We might take you back into the secret room and show you the cases of elbow grease and the whoop ass.
Yeah, we'll stay on about another 6 minutes. We'll cut this video short.
But right now it's all elbow grease now. It's all sanding. If you thought you've done a lot of sanding before, you're just now starting. Because this will have, I know Sparky's airplane, my airplane's behind his by a ways, but I've got at least 2 more sandings on this airplane before color goes on it. And Sparky's got probably 2 or maybe 3 more sandings on that, and then 5 or 6 different buffing compounds and rubbing compounds and wax and everything else that'll go on after all that.
From where I'm at now, there's 2 more sandings before the real sanding with 5,000 grit.
Yeah.
2 more complete sandings.
Well, you got 1,000, 1,200, or 2,000, 5,000.
Well, this will get 1,000 grit on it now before I ink it.
Yeah.
Then I'll ink it, shoot the clear on it, maybe 1 coat or 2 coats, whatever, and then 1,500, 2,000, 5,000, and then buff.
And then buff 3 different kinds.
And yeah,
a coarse polishing compound, a fine polishing compound, a swirl remover, and then wax. So you think you've gone over that airplane a lot and you've handled it. Think again.
Yeah, most guys give up when they get to this stage here. Looks good, let's go fly.
Hey, shine, let's go fly. It never ever reaches the rub out stage.
Usually they're broken.
Yeah. They're too busy. I got to go out there and test fly that. I don't know if I want to go through all this work or not, to know that I got a pig. Well, I guess you got a point there, but they sure do look a lot better when you go ahead and wet sand them out. And
My finishing theory has proven itself over and over again. You get 1 full quart of clear per airplane. That's all you get. If you're using any more than that, you're putting way too much paint on.
Yeah.
1/2 pint of color. That's all you get. Use more than that, too much.
you can put as much thinner in it as you want. Can't put any more paint in it.
You used what, 1 can of primer on this?
1 can of primer, yeah.
Now this new primer we're using, the Crest, is different than the DC540. It would have took 3 cans of DC540 because it's so not very opaque. It's very transparent. But this Crest at $15 a can takes 1 can. But you got to be careful. It's very heavy.
Yeah.
It's different than DC540. It's the same formula, fast dry, with acetones and ketone and xylene. And then there's,
But it builds fast. It's almost like you shoot it on there and it's sort of transparent and it swells up.
right.
And it gets darker. And, what looks like a really light coat, just leave it at that. And just wait until it dries. And you'll see that it really bulks up. And, I don't know how many times I ran a vacuum sweeper because the dust was an 1/8 inch thick on the table and stuff. And, there's a lot of primer got sanded off, and it's 1 can on everything, on the whole airplane. That's the flaps, the elevator, the cowl, the wheel pants, the whole airplane. 1 can. I opened up a 2nd can because I lacked just a teeny bit, and I probably should have drug that out because I hit a couple spots, a few extra spots because I saw a little ding or something, so I went over it and I would have had enough to go ahead and finish that out if I'd just gone ahead and finished it and not gone back and tried to put 2 coats on a couple little spots on it. But I didn't use anything out of the 2nd can. I had like a 1/2 of a wingtip left over. But 1 can, pretty much. And it'll be pretty nice. It's looking pretty good right now. You can sort of start seeing it coming out in it. But like I said, I had so much thinner in this because I started out with a quart of clear, a bare wood, a quart of clear, or 1/2 quart of clear. And then I filled the other half up with thinner, made a full quart of thinned clear. I did my 3 base coats, or 4. I put my silk span on the whole airplane. I did 3 coats on top of that. And I still had I don't know. I used it down, and I keep adding thinner to it. Keep adding thinner to it. Keep adding thinner to it. So by the time I got to this stage, I had about a quarter of a quart of clear left that had been thinned 3 times. So we don't know how much thinner is really in it. And then I added just a little bit of white to it, enough to put some color to the clear. And I added a little bit more thinner. So this white, when I pushed it on there, it was like coming out like water.
I got bad news for you.
I got some runs in it and stuff like that. Don't give me no bad news.
You're going to have to primer this again.
I know, I saw that. I'm going to sand it down and see what it does sand it down. Might not do it.
No, don't sand it anymore. Put primer on it. You got too much weave showing. Here, you can see the glass weave in it and the grain. It's good and light, but I would prime this and then sand it all off. That would fill all this stuff, and then shoot a coat of white on it. I wouldn't sand any more on this now. It's way too thin as it is.
Yeah, but those are the trials and tribulations, guys. They're trying to paint without paint.
These could use the same thing. Make it, put primer on it, make it look, sand it, make it look like plastic.
Yeah, I saw that. That's one of the pitfalls of sanding it and burning the primer. If you don't burn the primer, you're not taking enough of it off. And if you're doing a car, you don't ever want to sand all the way through to your bare metal and then shoot your colors over that. You want a thin layer of primer over everything and no burn spots in it.
Yeah, but we don't care what a car weighs.
Right. So you can put that stuff on a 1/4 inch thick if you want to and just sand it until it's smooth. And I could tell when this got smooth. You can see it, you can feel it and hear it.
Of course, you got to remember I'm wearing these magnifying glasses.
Yeah, Sparky's wearing magnifying glasses, and he looks at my airplane. He sees dents I can't see with my bifocals on. But in a way, that's good. But you got to watch chasing those things too, because they'll bite you. We showed you the weight of this green putty, how much it weighs. That's a pound of putty right there, and every little bit of that you put on, you got to sand it all off except for what's down in the little ding. And then get some kind of color on it, see if you actually got it full.
Well, that's the update. I told you it was going to be a short video. We've been on for half an hour. I appreciate you watching. I'm sorry I didn't get to show you any painting, but we had kind of the dust cloud in the garage and the compressor running, so on and so forth. But I did get a couple coats of clear on it, and John got his airplane down here. Like, subscribe, share. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Make sure you join Stunt Hanger using your real first and last name, stunthanger.com/SMF. And we'll see you again. Fair winds, tight lines. See ya.
Bye.